So welcome to the Asia Pacific Investors Panel. And you've seen something like this a few times in recent years, meaning where Asian investors, Chinese investors come together and there's a bunch of audience where you are either trying to raise money or trying to look for partnership. And that certainly have become more prevalent, meaning that even about 7, 8 years ago, I don't think there was any Asian VC coming to really Boston to really actively look for deals. That was kind of rare. And like 3, 4 years ago even, there were some Asian investors who started to visit Boston, Bay Area, and they were seen as some of sort of anomaly. They were I was asked once a few years ago, like, are you guys investing on the same terms as like US VCs do? And almost like asking us if we speak different VC language. And fast forward today, what's happening is that you see a lot of very active Asian investors coming here and investing, and not only doing that, they participate as leading investors in some of the big deals, and their co-investors are very well-known names, and through their partnership, if you are strategic VCs, maybe partnership could occur. And so there's a lot of activities going on. And today we wanted to visit some of drivers as to what's driving all that very hyper active deal making that had occurred over the last couple of years and continue. And we'll try to see if there are some differences as far as the investment strategy is concerned for Asian investors versus the Western investors and so on. And to start out, so we are allowed to give 5-minute introduction of ourselves. Nothing no personal sort of bio because it's all in here. So something about the company and what you're doing. And from there, we have prepared some questions to ask again to the effect of what's going on, what's happening, and how you see deals, what's your priority, and all that. So we'll go ahead and start. And for the introduction, I guess we'll start with the very end.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Sake Asan, not just called Sake, I'm with Japanese fine. And so I'm actually the founder president of Taiho Ventures. This is a corporate venture fund for Taiho Pharmaceutical, Japanese oncology specialty pharma company. The revenues are just about $1 billion. We allocated 20% for R&D expenses. And but the company is good thing about the company is cash rich, so that's why we established a new corporate venture fund last year. And myself, before Taiho, I was president CEO at Astellas Venture Management, another Japanese pharmaceutical company's corporate venture fund. And I ran the company 5 years. And also before that, I was a student advisor to Japanese financial VC with $800 million under management. And so I based in San Francisco Bay 17 years now, and made 38 investments so far. And the 11 company went public through the IPO, and the company were acquired by larger companies. In addition to the pure equity investments, when I was at the last 2 years at Astellas Ventures, I have another responsibility that the U.S. head of Astellas Innovation Management Group. The mission of the group is in taking the early stage science outside Astellas. And with that mission, our group closed 14 research opportunities with academia and biotechs, and including spin-out companies, also B2B companies in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Nice meeting you.
Derek.
Hi everyone, my name is Derek Yoon, and I'm a partner at RGIB Investment. RGIB is a South Korean venture fund headquartered in Seoul, South Korea. The company has been around more than 40 years and total AUM $1.5 billion. We are one of the top 5 largest venture funds in South Korea. And about 4 years ago, we opened a US office in Boston to extend our geographic investment coverage outside of Korea, and we picked Boston because biotech is one of the top primary focus. And I'm the founding partner of the US operation. So since the last 4 years, we have only invested therapeutic ventures in biotechs. And right now we have 12 companies in our US portfolio. And then focus areas oncology, ophthalmology, and some anti-infectious area. That's our top 3 focus area. And then one mission I would like to mention is there are a lot of interest in among Korean pharmaceutical companies they like to learn more about ecosystem in Boston area. So pretty much interact a lot with Korean farmers. So in the beginning, Chris just mentioned that a lot of interaction is going on right now between the Asian market, Asian companies and US companies here. So I also agree with that fact that many Korean farmers or even institutional or financial investors are really interested in exploring this biotech market. So we are in the right space right now. And then so my mission is connecting good investment, good drug assets for biotech development programs, connecting with various maybe Korean and leading Korean pharmaceutical companies there. So that's another mission very important for me. That's a primary my focus. Thank you.
Thanks. That's it.
Hi, my name is Hyuk-Jin Seo. I have the Samsung Venture Capital for Eastern US. Samsung Ventures, as you can imagine, is the corporate venture arm of Samsung. We do obviously a lot of investments in the tech field, but we also support our healthcare business within Samsung. So Samsung has a biologics, biosimilars business, as well as health imaging equipment businesses, and in terms of IT, enterprise IT solutions for healthcare. And then obviously on the mobile and smart home initiatives we have. So I guess on this panel, there are a lot of people on the therapeutic and pharma investments, which we do, but also looking at it from more the healthcare IT side is what we also tend to do. We're stage agnostic in terms of investments, and we have about $2 billion under management, roughly around 130, 40 companies in our portfolio right now. But we don't typically announce them, but quite a few companies in different areas.
Thank you. My name is Chris Kim. I'm with Novatia Ventures. We're an early stage investor based here, as well as in Canada, Toronto, and we also look at deals in Korea. Also have Korea Soul Life Science Fund, which is predominantly based in Korea and predominantly invested in a Korean company. And for that, it's operated with a partner, our corporate partner in Korea, and so that's early stage and early growth stage, and we looked at broadly within life sciences, therapeutics predominantly, but also diagnostics and convergence and very limited medical device. Okay. So I like I mentioned before, so we'll sort of start top down, meaning that all these activities that are going on as far as Asian investors being involved in many deals that are taking place in the West. So what's driving it? So there are, I'm sure, a number of reasons. Maybe LPs demand that. Maybe GPs want to find new investment opportunity outside of their domestic countries, and perhaps also there's more increased pull from the West counterparts. The more West biotech companies are open and really wanting to get investment out of Asia Pacific based VCs, because they want to perhaps down the road do something in Asia, which in aggregate is a very large market. Even if you exclude China, those other countries are together very large market, and it so has become that the boundaries, geographical boundaries for innovation, I think has become very blurred. So a lot of innovation is coming out of Asia, and obviously Boston and Bay Area and some other parts in the West has always been the sort of an epicenter of innovation. So how do they all sort of interplay? Healthcare in US is a very politically hot button issue, obviously, taking up significant portion of GDP. And in Asian countries, the healthcare spending is increasing. It's becoming a concern for many countries there. So like how do all those things sort of come together where it unfolds in a manner that people like these panelists are here, making active investments in the West-based companies. So tell us a little bit about like what's driving what we see. So anyone wants to start? Just three of you guys.
Let me take it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was thinking about what is the like driver for that big momentum right now. So I picked the three. First one, I guess, there are a lot of interest from the Asian side. Asian investors has a great amount of interest in biotech area, and they do know the innovative developments is going on in the U.S. and outside of the Asian market. So they start to looking for investment opportunities outside of Asia. So they end up with Boston or San Francisco or the biotech clusters. They start looking for investment opportunities. That's the first thing. And second thing, I'd like to say a lot of interaction between the scientists from the Asia, between the Asian scientists and the US-based scientists. Also, you may see that many science schools or engineering schools, and many Asian students so study here and they have a good experience here, and even working experience here, and then they go back to their own country and then they start to do something they learned from their school, right? So they're professors or they're connected with the senior scientists or junior scientists here, so they have good network built in there. So at the academia level, they build up the great quality of the network. They have Asian scientists that have built a great quality of network. And third one is Asian markets really getting bigger. So all the even global pharmaceutical companies, they really like to interact with Asian parties. They see that the Asian market has a big market to sell their drugs, right? So they're really interested in interacting with Asian folks to sell their drugs or making joint venture or co-development to make their pipeline to include the Asian market fit with the drugs, right? So those kind of three components are big drivers now to make this big dynamics.
Thank you. So, sorry. I didn't mention about the Taiho Ventures in my introductory session. So, Taiho Ventures mission is looking at early stage innovation in oncology, preclinical stage, innovative science, platform technologies. That's our mission. Those companies we are looking at investment. And with that mission, the best part of the world should be US and Europe, I think. And that was a driver, and that is not the recent driver. So actually, I was looking at that type of investment more than 17 years now. So we are very much consistently looking at, including when I was at Astellas days, the same purpose, looking at new modality, new biology, that is our mission.
Just a different kind of perspective. If you look at the the interest rates right now, they're quite low, and so if you look from an asset management perspective, I think the existing investments that these asset management companies have done, the LPs have done, aren't providing the results that they need, and so they look for alternative riskier assets. Obviously, venture is one of them, and so allocating more into that field makes more sense for them. If you look at countries like Korea, whether Singapore, these countries, they're pretty small. And so, Korea is one of the largest pension plans in the world. It's the second largest. And so they need to deploy their money. And so they need to export out. They need to deploy and they need to invest in other alternative assets. And looking at the small venture capital market in Korea it's just not going to, fulfill their appetite. So they are broadening, expanding out beyond Korea, for instance. And then I think, if you look at the Chinese market, for instance, it's a little bit different reason. From what I know, and I could be wrong, but from what I know, if you look at a lot of the growth that's happened in China, the middle class is growing quite significantly. And so there's a broader demand and quality of life and things like that. As more and more companies are being formed, the valuations right now in China are in some ways are higher than the US. And so a lot of these Chinese investors are looking outside of China as well, saying, where can I get a better valuation? And so investing in U.S. companies with great technology and bringing them to China is a very strategic move, right? That also makes sense for them. So I think there are different roles, and fundamentally, with a lot of healthcare or healthcare IT and so on, the backbone of that is having very, very cheap technology that enables these things to happen, right? Whether you're doing PCR or doing sensing of the heart, a lot of that requires innovative technologies that are now much cheaper, right? With with the growth of smartphones and all the cameras and processors and CPUs and all these things that are happening, these things are dropping in price significantly. And I think that's enabled a lot of technology to be the foundation for a lot of the research that's going on. In addition to all the capital, human capital that's here in the States and moving abroad and so on. I think those are some of the other drivers of growth.
So it's interesting that it sounds like more and more LPs in Asia-based LPs who are indeed putting their money into the Asia-based GPs. So they feel like they feel the almost urgency to diversify out of their domestic market. So I would ask then. So they would invest directly into the domestic GPs who would invest abroad, meaning in the Western countries, Western companies, or do they have to sort of wait as to how about we invest directly into like US based like well-known GPs, right? As opposed, because maybe at the end the money may end up in a sort of similar more or less portfolio companies. So like are those LPs thinking in those terms as well? How do they like sort of manage that? And to you guys, it so happened that all of you guys are corporate VCs. Okay, so how does that sort of LP dynamics play into that? Obviously you guys are relatively more strategic than financial, even though financials are obviously very important. It's easy to see the numbers if you deliver well. So like maybe can you describe a little bit about sort of the traditional financial type LPs there are in Asia who drives and supports the Asian VCs to invest here versus your own LPs? Can you just
So,
comment on that?
Yes,
please.
So a lot of the Asian LPs, they certainly would love to invest in, let's say, U.S. Venture funds, but to be honest, a lot of them can't get in. And it's not that there isn't enough money, that a lot of these key top-tier VCs have a whole bunch of money. They're making $600, $800 billion funds, right? And so they have a line of people coming to them. The top quartile always gets their money, and the second quartile, so on, have a more challenging time, obviously. And so, what differentiates the money coming from Asia, right, versus money from the U.S. It makes really no difference to them. And in terms of management of some of the money from Asia, it might be more challenging because of distance and so on. And so, I would say that with some of the top tier VCs, the LPs can't get in. And then I think then now you're talking about a different dynamic, right? The reason why the Asian LPs, I think, want to invest in U.S. Venture funds is not only to make money, but to have access to technology and access to people, right? And so now there's a dynamic of, can we access great people without investing in a top-tier VC? It gets a little more challenging, but without that, without having someone local, without having that connection, that bridge, it's very, very difficult for a lot of the Asian ventures Asian LPs to have that kind of access for insight, trend analysis, and things like that. Especially for us at Samsung Ventures, although we're a corporate VC, we actually do raise funds. Most of our investors are Samsung business units. We do have some outside investors, and we also do fund-to-fund investments. So we do invest in top-tier VCs around the world, and for us, we have a pretty good brand recognition, and so a lot of the GPs are open to taking our money. But still, what we found also from our own experience is that even a tech company of ours, our size, getting the attention of the top-tier VCs is sometimes very hard, right? If I have to compete with, Al Gore asking for attention from Kleiner Perkins versus Samsung employees asking for it, who are they going to take, right? And both of us are, let's say, an investor in Kleiner. And so we've balanced it. Sometimes we purposely don't go for the number one VC, but we'll actually go for number two or number three VCs. They're a little bit hungrier, right? A little more hungry and to work with Samsung. And so we work with that. The network is effectively the same. They're all in Silicon Valley, whether I invest in Kleiner or Sequoia or Andreessen or whatever else. Doesn't make a whole lot of difference to us. Just whoever works with us the most and best is what we look for.
Right. First of all, we are not, RGIB is not a corporate VC. So we are our model is building a relationship with institutional investors, mostly in Korea. They are our LPs. So and then we are raising funds through them, and then we are taking the GP role. That's our business model. And so we are not just looking for the strategic opportunities. So we are looking significantly looking at the investment or financial investment opportunities. And then about the LPs in Korea, that's true. One of the big reasons is largest LPs in Korea, for example, is governmental institutional funds or pension funds. It's part of a government entity, or municipal funds, or for example, teachers fund is a part of it. The government is governmental organization is heavily involved in their management. So because of that, it was very hard for them to directly interact with U.S.-based venture capital fund, which means U.S. GPs, right? So they always needed someone in the middle, bridging, like a Korean American type company, or like our Boston RGIB US office play in the middle, connecting themselves, like Asian or Korean-based funds, investors, connecting with GPs. They always needed someone in the middle, like bridging those two different markets. But recently, what I have seen last 2 years was even Korean governmental funds began to directly interact with big branded US-based GPs as well. For example, about 2 weeks ago, I was hosting, I cannot give out the name, but it's one of the largest pension funds in Korea. They're managing more than $30 billion AUM. It's one of the largest LP in Korea. We're trying to raise funds with them. But they are visiting Boston, but so I was thinking I need to take care of them like 24 hours their entire visit, but that was not true. They already scheduled meetings with many different US-based VCs by using their own network, right? So also US-based, Boston-based VCs, they know the Asian investors interested in directly putting money into their fund as well. So I can say that didn't happen before, but also Asian institutional fund, even governmental fund, mostly LPs, also looking for opportunities, putting funds outside of Korea, directly working with the US-based venture capital funds or GPs. That's what happening right now. But I have noticed right now.
Taiho Venture is the 100% subsidiary of parent, so we have fortunately only one LP. So maybe this question might be a question for you. So in terms of the asset allocation, Taiho Venture is trying to put 60% for the US, 30% Europe, and 10% in Japan. So that's about asset allocation. But all the three companies we have is all West Coast companies. So maybe maybe we're trying to get such kind of allocation.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So, we learned that there are more financial type LPs looking into investing in GPs who are Asian Pacific, who's Asia Pacific based, and so that I think is relevant to the fundraising companies as well, because that means overall sort of the trend is there where Asia Pacific GPs are less governed by their LPs. So again, I talked about a few years ago where Asian investors started to come here. They had some confinement that was imposed by their own sort of strategic type LPs. But it sounds like now there's more. The investment will be more diversified, and just like VCs here, they would look for the best deals that will hopefully generate some nice ROI. So that's something that we learned. Okay. So then, in some way relatedly, so like there you talk about oncology, ophthalmology, and infectious disease, and we probably know what Samsung might be looking for, even though you guys are now more into biologics. Obviously, biologics manufacturing, you are doing really well, and it looks like you guys are moving into more therapeutics innovations, and Taiho, it's it's yet another story. So can you tell us about a bit more in detail your areas of interest? What are you looking for, and perhaps like what's driving that internally?
Sure. Again, so Taiho Pharma is oncology company, so we are looking at the very much early stage oncology. So because we have BD group, they are looking at the clinical stage companies, so that's why we are very much focusing on early stage preclinical drug discovery, so pre-INDs that is the sweet spot. And we are looking at both small molecule and biologics, and we put up to 5 million for the initial investment and up to 10 million per company. Basically, we don't lead, but in some cases we take lead. Using, in the case of spin-out, using the Taiho molecule. The Taiho Pharmaceuticals is running more than phase 1 program. So some of them should be spun out licensed maybe next year. In the case of the spin-out, we will take the lead. So in terms of the oncology, so because Taiho has co-promotional right on the Keytruda and the PD-1 antibody in Japan. So the combination of the immuno-oncology asset is one of the sweet spot. And broadly looking at the immuno-oncology, so including oncolytic virus, so these are engagers, and also a small molecule combination for the as well. And also looking at the outside immuno-oncology, it's a DNA damage repair, synthetic lethality, or RNA and HLAs. And so undruggable target protein degrader to the very undruggable target. So such kind of new science in oncology, that is our sweet spot.
In terms of interest area, by indication, especially, I picked oncology, ophthalmology, and anti-infection. But I want to say, when we started our U.S. operation at the beginning, we just want to be opportunistic. We don't know that much about it. At the moment, we don't have a good amount of understanding what the market is. So we want to be opportunistic in the beginning. So we try to look for the market, the opportunities in the market, and then through the experience by investing in 12 companies, we end up with, we feel now more comfortable with oncology and ophthalmology and anti-infectious areas. That just happened by doing the investment process, the review process, but that does not mean we are excluding other side of the disease area. But so this is our outcome of truly being in the market and looking for opportunity, investment opportunities in the market. So I just want to clarify.
For Samsung, we certainly put money into these companies, but we think we need to provide something more strategic than that to the companies that we work with. And so as we're building our contract manufacturing facility, we want to be the partner with the startup companies to help develop this process of manufacturing drugs for the companies. So in addition to our investments, we try to concurrently have some sort of commercial agreement with the startups. And in terms of areas of interest, as I mentioned, companies that have new process development technologies is an interest to us. Antibodies are really interesting to us. We're looking at areas in Alzheimer's, and we're looking next, I guess, at kind of gene therapeutics. And then another area that's for the pharma, or I call it pharma side. On the digital health side, we're actually interested in diabetes for behavioral change, lifestyle, as well as hypertension. So a little bit different strategy for the different business units, but we think from a behavioral change, a lot of the neuroscience, lifestyle disorders, things like that, we can manage with our mobile, TV, home, and then on the therapeutics and so on, biologics, process development, cell line development, and antibodies is what we're focusing on.
Since you're looking to invest in companies that need manufacturing, what's your current GMP on the pharma side? What's your current GMP capabilities in manufacturing?
I don't have the exact numbers, to be honest. I know we just built our third plant, and my understanding is that once that's fully built, we'll be the largest contract manufacturer in the world.
Biologics or small molecule, both?
Primarily biologics.
Primarily biologics.
But right now, it's still a very open, we're being very opportunistic. We, at Samsung Ventures, we just raised a bio fund. And so we're in the process of working with the industry to figure out exactly what are we going to target. But the initial feedback we received has been 100%.
I mean, feel free to jump in, audience, if you have. We will have about 10 minutes dedicated to Q&A, but the floor is always open. So, so you know how the investors get together and they throw a panel. One thing that they get asked is investors, right? So they're supposed to know where things are going, and they should carry like a little crystal ball, right? So we're gonna do that. So you guys talked about where you are looking into and what you are most interested in. But among the sort of areas of your own coverage, like how do you see things unfold? What's maybe next big thing that's interesting, perhaps to you as well as the sort of industry as a whole? Can we talk a little bit about where things are moving forward? And this obviously it's a somewhat subjective in some ways, and maybe interesting topic to talk about. Anybody?
Yeah, it's a tough question. So we are again always looking at new science in oncology, and so that's why we are working with connecting with academia and looking at the new one. And so if it is a good chance, we are looking at from here both investment to the new company, such new company, as well as the research collaboration with them. And again, mission of the Taiho Venture is very much corporate strategic benefit to the investment. And the investment company, the portfolio company, we choose is in general something interest from our R&D side, and the future they have future potential for alliance in the future. And so one of the portfolio company, Arcus Bioscience, they are Bay Area-based immuno-oncology company. You may know former Flexus Bioscience team, established the company, and their IO inhibitor was acquired by BMS for $1.2 billion. And they established a second immuno-oncology company that is Arcus. And we invested in last year, and some of you noticed last week, Taiho press release working collaboration with Arcus Bioscience for Japan Asia rights. So with that, so such kind of the corporate activities is driven by our investment. So we cannot say which area we are looking at this one, because new science comes up immediately all of a sudden. So with that, we have to work to the academia.
That question is also a tough one for me because I'm always asking just to put things to the company. I never got asked that question to me, so I never think about myself how to answer what's next good thing, right? But what I have noticed through having meetings with entrepreneurs, especially in biotech, I still think oncology is the largest market, the largest opportunity there. But the question is how we're going to conquer the cancer, right? So maybe can be antibody or a small molecule or any different types of cool biotech, right? Like gene editing, gene therapy, or RNAi. So there are cancer, oncology is the largest opportunity in my mind still. But the question is which way we're going to take it to conquer cancer. That's kind of way we find opportunities under big umbrella of oncology. We're going to find a subsector which way we're going to take it to get there. That is kind of what I'm looking for as an investment opportunity.
So again, because I'm at Samsung, I see things a little bit, a different perspective in that, obviously oncology, all that's going to be big. But I think technology is going to really drive a lot of the stuff that's going to happen. So for instance, with AI, machine learning that's happening, right, that's going to impact, I think in the hospital, for instance, in image analysis, radiology, a lot of the radiologists should be scared. And that job, I think, will be obsolete in some time. And so things like that, I think, will impact. I think another thing that's going to happen in the future is that a lot of this, at least from Samsung, we're very interested in understanding, our EEG, ECG, and things like that. Can we do things to understand the patient, understand, what we call the voice of the body, these signals that we radiate? Can we do something with that, right? And can we create lifestyle changes where a lot of the therapeutics are there, but at the same time, there will be technology that will actually replace therapeutics, right? Do you have to take Ritalin to handle ADHD? Can you do it with a novel mobile app that actually trains your brain, to get rid of some of these other challenges without any side effect? And I'm seeing these technologies bubble up today. There are companies that I've seen that are now looking at using brainwaves for me to control objects, right? I just think it. I'm grabbing this object and I can actually pick it up and I can throw it. And so these things are happening to people who are disabled or people who are trying to learn how to focus their mind. These things are happening. And as that happens, some, obviously cancer, things like that, we certainly need the therapeutics, but there are a lot of lifestyle changes that's going to happen. And then when you talk about the next wave front of things that are happening, I think the next 5 to maybe 7 years out will be in quantum computing, where we'll now be able to do tremendous amount of parallel processing instantaneously, where computational modeling of new novel drugs, materials, things like that will happen. And they talk right now about AI and machine learning being really, really big. Every single company in tech now has an AI at the end of their logo. But I think the quantum computing will make it'll be far more important and dramatic to impact our lives than anything else we've seen. So that will be my guess in the next 5 to 10 years.
So in the greater scheme of things, the move toward personalization, obviously that's what's happening, and like how do you achieve the right level of personalization? And obviously that depends on all this connectivity and the data crunching and finding some patterns that human is not able to find, or let the machine find it. All that, I think that's all coming sort of together, and convergence, I think technology has matured so that it enables convergence to really accelerate. And like you guys and two other panel members as well, I think that's largely at some level that's where I guess a lot of investors are looking into, and lifestyle disease, and now aging is considered, at least to some people, it's a form of disease, mild disease. So it's a lot of people are jumping into aging, and again, all those are enabled by these great technologies that have come around. So I guess personalization and oncology, obviously, it's a very complex disease, but when you look at them, it's you're segregating into specific types of cancer, and again, within that, you sequence people and you look at certain neoantigen and all those things. All right, so and of course, neuropsychiatric disease, another very complex disease, and like, can you even diagnose correctly that you have certain type of neuropsychiatric disease when you probably may have something else, combined with some level of depression and everything else. So complexity kicks in, and then that's where the convergence occurs. So I was wondering, so the sizes of the VCs, the funds, it seem to be really increasing, right? If you look at the US VCs, they're putting together larger and larger funds every year since like 3-4 years ago. And we just saw, so this is tech, but SoftBank, right? Putting together like $100 billion VC fund. That's like a VC fund, 100 billion. And compared to Samsung, I think SoftBank is much smaller, right? In terms of revenue and their business interest. So like, are you guys doing something like that? Like 150 billion.
Or the 101 just to beat up.
Like what do you think about like this as Asia Pacific investors? Do you pursue bigger fund, and is it can you guys do it? Do you want to do it?
Personally, for me, I'm not a fan of big funds, to be honest. The reason is because I think by nature it's very hard to deploy all that money, right? And so by nature,
you just have to invest in Uber, right? At like 100 billion valuation.
Go through lawsuits and So I think having too big of a fund makes you, deploy more money. You're forced to deploy bigger check sizes. You end up naturally becoming a later stage company, and you're slowly moving away from what I consider to be real venture. It's more private equity, right? And as you start doing that, the returns dramatically change, right? So as the funds get bigger, that typically the returns start to decline a little bit because of larger deployment, later stage. It's just a different type of investment. But I think what's really needed, at least in Asia, is this stage from the R&D to commercialization. There's this huge chasm where you can't commercialize, and that's why a lot of the companies in Asia try to come here because they can't find the micro VCs. Companies, the VCs in Korea or in China, if you ask them, what stage they do, if you look, they're more like crossover funds or late stage funds or private equity than real micro VCs or VCs looking at Seed to Series A stage. And even at that stage, they call themselves Series A, but if you look at the type of requirement they have, we want revenue, we want 10 patents, filed and issued, and we want 300 different customers. That's not an early stage venture fund. So it's shifted. And so personally for me, I think having that smaller fund, even though I'm at Samsung, I think the smaller funds, for me personally, is more exciting. And also, Samsung, although our fund is big, it's actually an aggregation of many small funds. And so we deploy money in small increments across many, many different fields. So we still have that small fund flavor, if you want to call it. And it's rare that we deploy, big check size, even though we do once in a while. But I personally believe that smaller funds will what's needed.
How about Ajo IB? When I mentioned earlier that you guys are corporate VC, I was just thinking, so Ajo IB is one of the Korean conglomerates. So you guys were part of conglomerates, that's why I said corporate VC. But so do you want to raise as a bigger fund as possible sometime? Or?
So, like Hyuk-jin said, I'm not a big fan of big funds. I want to be a good sniper, not a shooting capital everywhere. That doesn't mean anything to me. So I really believe in good insight for the future really brings a really good returns. So I believe in that. But the good thing about having big funds is just having smaller funds limits the kind of limits the really types of deals. So if some in the market really good company in the marketplace requires private equity type transaction something, then small company, small fund cannot do that kind of deals, right? So having a big funds is definitely a benefit, but definitely there is also many big fans of the small fund want to be a good sniper. So through the drug development cycle, I would say I thought of one good chart in the website saying early stage or later stage. There's a big chart there published by one consulting firm. They say very early stage drug discovery level is invested by angels or individual investors or families or pools or the types of early stage investors. And then through preclinical stage or entering clinical stage is covered by venture capitalists like me, medium-sized VCs, right? And then afterwards, company entering phase 1 or phase 2 or later, that is covered by capital market, public capital market. That means company can go IPO to raise money from the public market, or private equity funds or big hedge funds or mutual funds. They cover that piece, right? And then afterwards, all the strategic investors covering, they do M&A, multiple billion M&A or acquisitions. That's a kind of big chart of capital source through the cycle of drug development. So I would say each stage, there's a market, there's a capital source, different types of capital source available. So I don't want to say always big fund is always good to achieve a good returns or investment outcomes, right? I don't believe in that. So that's kind of, I want to give you a big landscape about each capital sources available for each type of each stage of the company.
Great, thank you. So Taiho Ventures, Taiho Pharma, you guys are like most other big pharma or big biotech, how they are really investing into earlier and earlier, and even like funding like research and universities and all that. So maybe if you don't need big fund, maybe you are getting smaller. It's okay with that, or
Yeah,
no?
that's
I'm just
right.
saying, but I'm not saying that you are. But how's it going in Taiho in terms of fund size?
Yeah, yes and no. So because the oncology, immuno-oncology exciting deal, usually she's A money with 50 or 60 million. She's A, and three tranche deal. So we have to put more money for those opportunities. So the initial commitment of Taiho Venture is 50 million, very small, but we can expand a couple of $100 million in 30 years. Again, we put up to 10 million for one company, and we need to get into good deals. So with that, we have to put at least 5 million for the initial investment. So such exciting oncology opportunities.
Do you? So it's it's evergreen fund?
Yeah, we have.
Okay, so you have more flexibility for the time. Okay, so we have a few minutes left for audience Q&A. So please feel free to.
I had a question for Taiho. You described a couple of deals where there were investments made in U.S. companies, but then part of that, or maybe some sidecar, was a license that you got for Asian territories. Is that a requirement in your model? Or
Yeah, the model is, it worked for my first investment at Taiho, but it's rare. So when I go back to the Astellas days, they invested in the 40 companies, but only one company partnered with Astellas. And looking at the Takeda Ventures as well, they have maybe 30 to 40 investment, and one company in was acquired by the company. So pure equity investment, and after then partnered and acquisition is very much rare. That's why Astellas created an innovation management to make more option type of investment or due to buy type of investment. And also at Taiho, I have such expertise, and I will do the same thing.
And so, but do you have, do you help add value to your U.S. investment by providing contacts with companies in your territories, both of you and Aju as well? Do you facilitate?
Yeah, so into our fund, some Korean pharmaceutical companies are participating as an NP. So their interest is they want to review our portfolio company, also our deal pipelines, to see in-licensing opportunities or joint venture opportunities. So that's our obligation to share our deals. Not a requirement, but be fully open to our investors. So we are encouraging them to make deals, facilitating the deals between Korean farmers and U.S. investors, and U.S. companies. And also, definitely, most of our portfolio companies are interested in Asian market, and they ask me to find the right regional partners. Right? So we have different assets, which farmers is right to work with. Right? This area is which one has a strong footprint in the market. So there are a lot of interactions, and then to answer your question, definitely yes.
Yes.
Christopher, we haven't heard much about Novation.
So we are a very early stage companies,
Okay.
investor, and the most recent deal that we put together is actually a university spin-off coming out of somewhere in Canada. It's an enabling technology, and it's a small round that we put together along with another investor. But another investor, it actually so happened that it's a Chinese investor who were very interested in coming to North America, and they were sort of brave enough and interested enough to invest in a company that just got spun off of university. So it's I think it was somewhat telling to us as well that the appetite for Asian investors are changing. And like I said, our investments are sort of broad in terms of coverage, therapeutics, and again like tool enabling technology type, and the convergence. But we honestly we don't know yet. Like digital health type, I have to ask him what's out there, and he has to give me some tips. But so that's where we are. And our existing Korean fund that is predominantly Korea based. So we we have a bunch of Korean portfolio companies, some of which had attained pretty nice exits through the Korean capital market, which is more or less stably vibrant, and so that's where we are. Okay, I see that timeout, so we're done. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.